Paul Adamson here. Council meeting will begin very soon with the committees. But first of all, we have with us tonight Matt Stasinski from MAS Financial and A.J. Allen from Davenport Financial, our municipal advisors. We've asked them to, well, they're working on long-term forecasts for us, but specifically in that regard, we have a fire levy that's on the ballot in November, and you'll hear the details of it, but it's extremely significant as far as the financial forecast for the city. So we've asked them to do initially a forecast of the potential consequences in the event that levy fails, which we're praying that it does not. So with that, I will give you Matt and AJ.
Good evening, all. Nice to see you. Who's ever watching elsewhere, welcome. AJ, if you don't mind, to mirror what the mayor just said, on calendar year 2019, city residents passed a fire levy, a 5-year levy, which is scheduled to expire in collection year 2025. On the ballot, thanks to the administration and council's efforts, there's a 5-year renewal levy, which will be on the ballot this November, with the goal of continuing the funding in the same manner as it currently exists. No change to the millage. These renewal levies are designed to generate the near exact amount that was collected when it was first in place. So the renewal continues to generate virtually the same dollar amount that it was designed to collect back when it was passed in 2019. Okay? Our efforts here really were designed, and though you may hear some what we'll call dramatic terminology in terms of, we'll call it operating deficits or negative balances, we're not here to be an alarmist. We're not here to try to scare people. We're just trying to explain the consequences, or we'll call it the magnitude of the challenge, should the levy not pass. And that's our intent tonight, to just try to talk through some of the challenges the city would face and how we might remedy those challenges should it fail. But we want everyone to know that this is a group effort. It's not just fire specific. It had, when a levy fails, you're relying upon the entire community to try to solve the problem, because these funding sources are all what we'll describe as fungible, meaning it may not directly impact the sewer department or the street department or the police, but we'll call it as a governmental entity, you're trying to solve these problems, so there are consequences to other departments should some funding source fail to be renewed. Okay? If you don't mind, I'm going to turn it over to AJ. He's going to talk through some of the analysis that Davenport prepared, and we will we'll interject as needed. And if there are questions from the council or the residents, please feel free to jump in with your questions while we're going through the content. Okay? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction, Matt. Again, AJ Allen from Davenport. Quickly, we wanted to review before we get into the future where the city has been in the past when it comes to the fire district, the fire department funding. What we have up on the screen here, the text might be a little bit hard to see. Just looking at the green bars, those are your revenues for the fire department. The yellow gold line, those are the expenditures. So what we see in that, our revenues have been relatively steady over the last 5 fiscal years. That's generally how the levy works. The levy is designed to generate a set amount of revenue. And so with that, our expenditures have been growing over the time. That's been both the updating and reopening of Station 2 in the city, as well as collective bargaining agreements and the general inflationary pressures we all have felt. So what we've seen with that, while we've had flat revenues or a little bit increasing, our expenditures have started to increase. While we might have been structurally balanced, we're starting to see in 23 and 24, our expenditures start to outpace the revenues. This isn't necessarily uncommon. This is something you'll see with levy-funded fire district or police departments.
AJ, just that last bullet, as it relates to above the header there, this is generally attributed to the updating and reopening of Station 2 in the city. We just want to point that out, that did add some burden to the fire department expenses.
Thank you, Matt. And so what we have done here now on 3, we've looked back at historically where the city's fire district has been. We've looked at both what the budget was for 25 and what our estimated actuals are for 2024 to create a projection going forward. And so with this projection going forward, starting in 2026, that's where the red bar is, we said, what if the city does not pass the fire levy? What if the 575 in millage, which is projected to generate about $3 million of revenue for the city, what if that fails at the ballot box? And so with that, the city would be running about a $3 million annual deficit in the fire district fund. So it's $3 million on an annual recurring basis the city would not have. That would be expenditures above revenues of about $3 million. So what does that mean for the city moving forward? If the fire levy were to fail, the city would have to come out of cash balances likely. And so with that, dipping into its cash balances, we wanted to project what the size of the city's cash balances are currently, its fund balances, and how long those could float a failed fire levy. How long could the city continue to operate without that fire levy in place, assuming no other mitigating factors. And so what we have up there, we have our projected year-end governmental cash balances. One thing I do want to emphasize, going into red, that would not happen. The state oversight would come in before the city would go into the red, the negative cash balances. That would be fiscal emergency for the city. But what we see is in 2026, city's cash balances are just about $2 million. If we continue without the past fire levy into 2027, the city's cash balances would deplete below zero without other mitigating options. So without passing the fire levy and without undertaking other mitigating options such as expenditure cuts or finding other revenue sources, the city would deplete its cash balances. That is the importance of the fire levy in November.
And what we see for 26, that's without the $3 million. That's
Right.
why we see the dramatic drop from 25 to 26.
Hey, Jay, can I trouble you to just go back to the prior slide for one quick second? Just pointing out that this slide is focused on the fire district fund, and as it's pointed out, as AJ pointed out previously, the trend line, goldish, and above the green bars, points out that there is an imbalance already. There's a structural deficit that's being incurred in the 2023, 2024, 2025, where fire revenues are not enough to support the expenses. As I mentioned, that's likely due to the reopening of the Station 2, bargaining unit agreements, and just inflationary pressures from normal operating expenses. No different than your home, your households. Inflationary pressures put pressure on us, and if our revenue is somewhat fixed, like it is here on the table, we fall behind. Same is true. So in the last couple of years, the city would have had to take revenues or take reserves that would be building like a savings account, if you will, and supplement by taking those reserves and using them to fund operating expenses. All right, that gap that you start to see in 23, 24, 25, that's already a burden. Should the fire levy not be successful, we have, and we'll call it an additional burden, a tremendous additional burden, by way of the shaded area in the red that starts in 2026. So I'm pointing out that it's critical to the overall funding, but we're already falling behind in terms of fire revenues available to support fire expenses. This is the fire fund, the fire district fund. The next slide that AJ points out is governmental, meaning it is all your revenues. Keep in mind if there's, when we rely upon revenues, when we rely upon reserves, and we have to fund a program, it's just not the fire funds that we would draw from. We would draw potentially, if council deemed appropriate, we would draw from the general fund if necessary. We would draw from any fund that allows for the flexibility to fund the fire department. Now, some funds, special revenue funds, are strictly restricted by state law, like a street construction maintenance and repair fund. You cannot use those monies for anything other than street construction maintenance and repair. You can't use them to the extent that the city would transfer monies from the general fund to street construction. We would perhaps consider reducing that transfer from the general fund. But street construction maintenance and repair, police pension, fire pension, things of that nature are limited to what they can be used for. and not necessarily available to be drawn down to solve this problem, as an example, in 2026. Okay? And as AJ mentioned, the state doesn't allow cities to run in the red. They have specific targets by which if you miss a payroll, you have too many bills outstanding in your accounting system, and they will look to come in and intervene and take over the city's budget. You don't have the luxury of running a deficit. They will act when an operating deficit of this nature starts to occur. And what they basically do is they create a committee. The committee comes in and provides oversight over the council and makes decisions for the city as to how to right the ship in terms of operating expenses. And it will be the council's decision, the administration's decision, as to how to right the ship and get this back in balance. With that, I'll go back to AJ's comments.
No, thank you, Matt. And here on this next slide, getting into a little bit of what Matt was hitting on, and to read into that a little bit, is in this worst case scenario, the idea that this fire levy does not pass in November, what are the city's mitigation options available to it? As we've seen on the previous slide, the idea of using cash balances to continue to fund the fire district at current levels is not really an option. So what options would the city have to mitigate the impact? And so with that, the two primary options would be reducing expenditures in all departments, not just the fire district, not just the fire department, or identifying an alternative revenue stream. That alternative revenue stream could be something such as a reduction in local income tax. It could be an income tax levy, alternate revenue streams outside of the property tax millage. Now, each of those have their own considerations, and that's what we're going to get into on these next slides. And so with this is our option of reducing fire district expenditures and reducing overall expenditures. And so quickly, back to the napkin map that we wanted to share with everyone, the current for FY25 budget, fire district expenditures are about $3.4 million. The fire levy that's up in November is projected to generate around $3 million of annual recurring revenue for the city. And so with that, if the city were to only isolate cuts to the fire department, you'd effectively have to eliminate 90% of the fire department's budget without an alternative revenue stream. Eliminating 90% of the fire department's budget would essentially eliminate the fire department, and as we understand from conversations with the city, that's not an option. Eliminating the fire department is not an option, so instead, there would be wide-ranging cuts across city services, not just in the fire district, not just in the fire department, it'd be in the police department, service departments, other general government administration. Cuts would not just be isolated to the fire department, because that $3 million, that's 15% of the city's overall revenue. Just outside of the fire fund, that's 15% of overall revenue. So it would be broad sweeping cuts would be necessary to mitigate a $3 million loss in revenue. The flip side of the coin is identifying an alternative revenue stream. The alternative revenue streams, assuming we're not looking at another property tax levy, would generally be looking at the income tax for the city. The city already has existing income tax in place. The city could pursue as an option an additional 1% income tax levy. That's similar to the property tax levy, would require a vote of the people and have to go on the ballot. My understanding is that we've already passed the window to have that on the November ballot. So if we were to fail with the property tax levy in November, it would likely be on the May ballot at the earliest, so next May. So that would already start to eat into when the city would be able to receive revenues from that. But on that point, if the city were to want to replace the 5.75 property tax mill levy with income tax, the equivalent is about a 1% income tax. So the idea is about $5.75 on the millage, or it's a 1% income tax. Those both generate about the same recurring annual revenue for the city. Importantly, though, with that income tax change, the city wouldn't necessarily realize all those revenues in 2026. In fact, it may not be until 2027 or 2028 that the city fully realizes all the revenues from that 1% income tax as people begin filing their taxes, as tax preparers begin adjusting to the new income tax rate. It may not really be until fiscal year 28 that the city would receive all the revenues from that income tax change. Alternatively, this would be an option that may not require a vote of the people. This would be a local income tax credit. So currently in place for Ohio governments, some Ohio local governments, is an income tax credit. So if someone is working in the city of Greene and they're paying their income tax in the city of Greene, but they live in the city of New Franklin, the city gives them an income tax for the credit that they've already paid somewhere, or credit for the income tax they've already paid elsewhere. So you're paying 2% in Greene, you don't have to pay the 2% here in New Franklin, even though you live in the city. An option the city has is reducing that tax credit to not be 100%. The idea would be instead of giving them full credit for the amount that they're paying to Green, you would give them half credit for the amount that they're paying to the city of Green. And so with that, we provided a quick table to help understand what that means financially. So up at the top, the blue that's the city's current income tax rate. It's 2%. The city currently gives a 100% credit to residents on income taxes paid to other Ohio local governments. So the additional potential revenue there is zero. The first case we've looked at, keeping the income tax the same, moving our credit to zero and our credit cap to zero, that would generate about an additional $3 to $4 million for the city of additional recurring revenues. That would essentially replace the fire levy fund. This is the idea. If this fire levy does not pass in November, this is an option that the city could use to continue to fund expenditures at the same level. Alternatively, number two, that would be an income tax increase, again going from 2 to 3%. That would similarly generate in the $3 to $3.5 million range of recurring revenue for the city. That would require voter approval at the ballot box. In regards to the income tax, the local income tax credit, that's subject to the city's lawyer's opinion, city legal counsel opinion as to whether it requires a vote of the people. We defer to Mayor Adamson on that, but that is an option that we have seen employed elsewhere without a vote of the people in an emergency.
So I only have, this is not a unique situation in terms of levies going before the ballot for property taxes, and should there be some mishap in terms of, we'll call it the ballot, cities generally turn to income tax because in most cities in Ohio, income tax is the largest source of revenue, and it has greater flexibility by way of what AJ just described in terms of reducing the income tax credit, which for most communities in Ohio is at council's authority. That doesn't require a vote of the residents. Some charters are restricted, some income tax initiatives have restricted that credit, but most communities in Ohio have that at the luxury of the city council level to make that change in the credit reduction. And it can be fine too. It doesn't have to be our scenario here. The information in this slide was gained from the folks at the Regional Income Tax Agency, which the city uses to collect income tax. Most people don't like the acronym RETA, but that is the source of the information. They collect the city's income tax, and they provided these various estimates for the change in the income tax credit or the change in the tax rate. But for example, the 2% scenario one, the 2% income tax rate with a 0% credit, that could be reduced to something other than zero. It could be reduced to 25% or something different to try to get nearer the amount of the monies that the fire levy generates. So it's not it doesn't have to be zero, but we try to simplify this to show an income tax reduction by way of the credit, or income tax increase in revenue by way of the credit reduction, or by way of going to the ballot with an increase. And keep in mind, if you're going to have an increase of, from 2 to 3%, everyone pays that. Anybody who works in the city of New Franklin pays that, and everyone who pays somewhere else will likely pay an increase to the city of New Franklin, unless they're working in a community that is already taxing at 3% or higher. We've talked about this at the last council meeting. We know that should any of these statewide property tax initiatives get some traction to repeal property taxes, everyone's going to this. Everyone's going to this because income tax is the one lever that has some critical mass to it that most cities have the wherewithal to implement. So this is not something that we're just creating out of ex nihilo, out of nothing. This is a fairly standard routine where property taxes are in any way upset. People use this income tax as a remediation measure. Okay? I'll stop and see the question.
Yeah, maybe this is a question for Mayor Adamson, but I thought in your opening comments you said it was going to be flat, the renewal is going to be the same amount of income that we get now, but I thought it's been on the record that somebody that has, say, a $400,000 house would be paying an extra $250 above what citizens already paying for the current fire levy.
Yeah, it's consistent in millage. So what we've had from our very first fire levy was 5.75 mils. So this would be consistent on, Kevin, you want to say something?
No, actually,
So it's consistent in that sense. And what happens is the millage that you collect, as you know, goes down each year, and that's really, for the longest time, we were able to run the fire department on the fire levy funds. As those funds kind of flatline, inflation comes in, station 2, we're supplementing that with general fund already. But as it relates, and we were clear about that, we want to stay clear about that, all of our literature will make that very clear as well. I thought the projection I don't have it in front of me, was about 180 a year for a $200,000 house. So, it could be as much as 360 for a $400,000 house. $30 a month. $1 a day. So no, but really, but in answer to that, so, it will, the upside is that same millage would generate about 3.3 million, which is very close to exactly what it costs us to run the fire department. Let me interject in general. Why we're here, why MAS Financial is here. The city as a whole, our revenue streams are income tax and property tax. We have basically flatlined, there hasn't been any new development out here for who knows how long. For the longest time we had no sewer, no water, no highway, so we didn't get any new jobs. So we flatlined on income tax. There hasn't been a new development until the water line in over 20 years. So we flatlined on property tax. And so what happens just generally, just because of that, because of inflation, eventually, when you flat line on revenue and your costs are going to go up, eventually that's going to be problematic. And so, I guess, in response to that, in anticipation of, we've done a couple things. First of all, we spent a lot of time building the infrastructure. We're going to see some development. We're going to see some controlled development, and that's all that's going to happen. But so that we can generate some additional jobs, some additional income tax, some additional property tax. And I think, and the good news is we didn't wait till now to start doing that. We've been working on that for a number of years. And as a result, we'll have sewer out here a year from now. On State Route 93, and we have a development meeting today. We're going to see some development, the kind of development that I think will keep us on an even keel so we can keep the same level of services. But with all that in mind, we said, well, let's engage some experts to give us some projections of what the next 5 years are going to look like as we wait for all of that to happen. And that's how MAS Financial and Davenport, how we found them, and they've been very helpful. And so they started that process to develop a 5-year plan, or give us a 5-year forecast. Well, as we're working towards that, it's like, well, by the way, we want you to forecast for us how we're going to be, and we know what we're historically collecting on property tax and income tax, but we got a fire levy that's $3 million, and we don't know what's going to happen with that. And so that's where this interim report came from. And that's why we asked them to put this together. I want to emphasize that this year is no different than every other 5-year cycle. Every 5 years, the people of the city have been asked to renew the fire levy. And every 5 years, if the fire levy had not been renewed, we'd be having the very same conversation. I don't know if we ever went into this much detail before, but we felt it was incumbent upon the city to say, we can't take anything for granted. And this isn't a pep talk for the people in the rooms. I've lived here forever. And I think there's great high regard for the level of service that we have with our fire department. And everybody understands costs go up. And so everybody historically has been very, very supportive of these fire levies. But we would be remiss if we sat here and presumed it was going to happen. And if we woke up on November 5th and said, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? And so this is just a proactive step to say, okay, if that were to happen, doomsday scenario, how do we make sure it's not doomsday? So we gathered our department heads together with our finance director, and we had a detailed conversation about, okay, if this were to happen, clearly we're not going to shut down the fire department, but we're going to have to make cuts in every department to address that. you know, I don't even want to get into the property tax issue, but if something like that would happen, well, we have to have those scenarios as well. And if all of that were to come to pass, then the city, for our collective sake, is going to have to look at some other revenue sources. So that when, you know, when I hit 911, I need that EMS truck to show up. And so do you. And so we're going to have to find some other revenue streams. And what might those be? I don't ever want to have, I hope as a city we don't have to ever do that. And I don't think we will, quite frankly, because I think we've done good planning in terms of the infrastructure. I think we're going to have the kind of development we need that's not going to be obtrusive. And I think our revenue streams are going to be just fine. I'm confident the people in the city are going to pass this fire levy. And I think cooler heads will prevail when it relates to property taxes. Because the alternative, when we get in, but yeah, these are the only options, okay? And we don't want to see these options. 90% of the people who live here work somewhere else. And so if that tax credit goes away, everybody's getting hurt. So we're going to save a little money on property tax. That $200,000 house isn't going to pay an extra $15 a month for the fire levy, but you're going to pay a whole lot more on your income tax. Or if you put the income tax up, there's only 10% of the people who work here, and now they're going to bear the burden. Okay, so we don't want to see any of that stuff happen. So we really wanted to consider every scenario and get as much information out there as we could. And you asked a very short question. I gave you a very long answer. I'm done. And Kevin had something to say too.
So yeah, what Mr. Hoffman, Eric and I, Mr. Stiles and I were talking about the same thing about it. It does generate more money. One other thing I wanted to bring up, and correct me if I'm wrong there, Edison, I thought this is a replacement levy and not a renewal. As if the legislation clearly says it's to replace. So I know there is some...
It's an additional levy. You're still allowed to have replacement levies. That eventually, I think the statute after the first year you won't be able to. Okay, but this is on the ballot as the nomenclature. I didn't write it. You know, the Secretary of State is. So this is called an additional tax.
But it's not a renewal, though.
It's not a renewal.
Okay, so I just want to point that out in case somebody, you know, if this is a public document, which it will be, somebody sees it's a renewal, I just want to make sure that that's corrected so it reflects accurately.
Yeah, no, and that's what the language you see on the ballot is, that this is, according to their terms, this is an additional tax to replace the expiring tax. And that's what's happening. It happens to be the exact same millage, but it'll generate an extra about $800,000 or $900,000.
I know we're already on the ballot with the language that's there, but it's quite a gamble, as significant as this money is, to go to people and say, you're going to owe an extra, given all the pressure on property taxes that have been going up and evaluations, to say, hey, it's going to be another $350 for you if you have a four. I don't know if I'd be as overconfident on it passing, but.
Two things. First of all, when we talk about the 180 for the 200, that's the median value for houses out here, is the 200,000. And second of all, you got an alternative?
Yeah, I like option one.
Which is what?
Well, I like the credit option more than the raising income tax.
Oh.
I mean,
Yeah.
not 2% though. I would think that we could start being proactive at like a 0.5% credit back to start building up a cushion. But I mean, if it fails, then I guess you got to figure out, you go back to the ballot in May and say, okay, instead of the mills, we're going to keep it flat, get less in, and then put a income tax credit of a quarter or something like that on it. But
You mean go back for a lower millage?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see. Hopefully we don't get to that point.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I used the word renewal, and it's fair that as a replacement. As going back to one of the slides, the fire department is already in an operating deficit. If you were to go back as a strict renewal, you generate the exact same amount, right? And you would still have the delta, if you would, of the imbalance from the revenue stream to the operating expenses. So you'd solve the problem today for the immediacy of the $3 million, but you still have to come back with another solution for the gap.
Yeah, you gotta live with that for 5 years.
Right, so you'd be back asking the residents for something else again, perhaps, or making cuts to solve the problem of a growing deficit in that fire. So there's never a perfect solution, right? No one wants to pay more income tax, property tax, no one wants to pay more property tax. There will be a slight increase because as the millage is reset to be back to a full millage as a replacement, and so you do pick up some increases in taxes as a result of the resetting of the effective rate of the millage. There's no other way around that unless you went again with the straight renewal, and that would just still leave the problem with the deficit in the fire fund. So, any other questions? I should.
All right. We'll be posting information on our website. So this is an only opportunity. We'll make sure we get that there. Alice, thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, our pleasure. Again, not intended to alarm folks. I think what we're trying to impress upon everyone, and everyone in this room probably knows it, ad nauseum, this is a collective effort, not just a fire issue. When you see all those governmental funds being drawn down, that's beyond the fire department. You'd have to solve that problem. So everybody's in the same boat here with the fire to try to solve this funding in the fall, in November. And AJ brought up a good point, and I'll stop there. None of these solutions solve this immediately other than this levy, okay, with the funding. An income tax credit has a delay to it. A passage of an income tax increase has a delay to it. And you'd have disruption, no doubt, while you're waiting for those funding streams to fully come online. So the path to, we'll call sufficiency in the fire department and for the city generally is passage in November. Okay. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Val, it's all yours. You know, hey, while you're taking your places, I haven't really thought, I appreciate the conversation we had here. I thought, well, let's just, first of all, you'd have to eliminate the credit for taxes paid elsewhere to generate that same amount of money. If an individual, I'm sorry?
If you didn't have the fire levy at all.
Yeah, if you didn't, yeah. And so for an individual who makes $100,000 a year, he's subject to an additional $2,000 a year. And that's really why when I compare that to, the 480 bucks, it's.
Yeah, 0% credit would be painful.
Yeah.
People would move out.
Yeah, well, you're right. But even if you did 1%, now you're going to pay an extra $1,000 while you're, while you're saving 480. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But I'm glad you asked the question because I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, you guys can disengage.
Thank you all. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
You had a good summer. But that lasts longer.
Yes, I agree.
Thanks, man.
With that, we're going to start our committee meetings for city council. We've got no first readings, no second readings. We've got third reading for ordinance 25-003. Mr. Wolf.
Open up the Laws and Ordinance Committee at 6:36. An ordinance submitting to the electors of the city of New Franklin a proposal to amend section 7.05, 7.06, and 7.07 of the charter and declaring that this ordinance shall be effective immediately upon passage. I should say this is ordinance 25-003.
Mr. Wolf, can you share I know what that is, but I don't know if anybody else in this room knows what it is.
I'll let the person that sponsored the bill.
Yes. So what ordinance 25-003 basically equates to is just to go back to how the boards and commissions are selected in the city, and just to kind of break those up and make them a little evenly distributed between the powers of the mayor and powers of council. That's really all that comes down to. that we've got a handful of boards and commissions that have key roles in the city, parks and zoning and stuff like that. And this is to kind of split those up amongst the elected officials. So this is the third reading on this. I know we've had some discussion back and forth on it. I know Mr. Cox had suggested tabling it for a while. What I thought about maybe doing, if everybody's okay with it, is table it until the first meeting of November. Reason being is we had a similar situation to this a couple of years ago where we had a piece of legislation that was being proposed. The gentleman that was here was appointed to another office. And when it come time for us as a body to vote on it, we couldn't make any amendments to it because the person who sponsored it wasn't here to make those amendments. So what I'd like to do is maybe postpone it until November. And then that will allow us to decide if we want to pull it off the table altogether. Because if let's say, since I sponsored this, let's say I'm not here next year, I can pull it off the table in November. That way there's no mess for everybody to clean up. If I am, then we push it out till next April, May, make whatever adjustments to it if it passes, or however that looks, we can move forward with it. And that's just going to clean it up by then. So is everybody okay with that?
That's good, that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions, any comments? No? We'll close our Laws and Ordinance Committee meeting at 6:39.
All right, our next resolution is 25R39. Mr. Schaefer.
Open the Community Development Committee at 6:39. It's Resolution 25-R-39. Resolution authorizing New Franklin to enter into an agreement with OHM Advisors for the design of Assistive Park Trail project and declaring an emergency. As to date, for the Parks meeting I went to yesterday, we still do not have the information back from the attorneys. So I'm happy to talk about questions and whatnot, but I'm going to ask for time on this.
All right, that gets through everything. So I would like to call to order the City of New Franklin Council meeting for August 20th, 2025. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Cox?
Present.
Mr. Schaefer?
Present.
Mrs. Jones?
present.
Mr. Powell?
Present.
Mr. Stiles?
Present.
Mr. Wolf?
Present.
Thank you. Before I ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the regular scheduled meeting of August 6th, I want to make a note that you noticed a clerical error on a piece of legislation that we passed. That was 25R43, which gave us permission to purchase a chase vehicle for the fire department. That resolution was listed as, like I said, 25R43. We didn't realize it until after the meeting that 43 was voted on in the previous meeting, so this should actually be 25R44, and I'd like to make sure we note that in the minutes. With that, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
First,
Second.
we have a second. Kelly?
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the financials for July and June of 2025?
I'll make a motion.
We have a first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have a second? Kelly?
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is public comments. If you have anything you'd like to address council, please state your name and your address. And you have 4 minutes to give your comments.
I understand future business or past business is going to talk about short-term rentals. I'll hold off until we get an update on that.
I think that's going to be the mayor's report.
Okay.
Anybody else with any public comments? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comments. We'd like to move on to our third reading. Kelly? Ordinance 25003.
An ordinance submitting to the electors of the City of New Franklin a proposal to amend sections 7.05, 7.06, and 7.07 of the charter, and declaring that this ordinance shall be effective immediately upon passage.
This was brought in front of the Laws and Ordinance Committee. I'd like to request to table this until the first meeting in November.
Second. I don't think he has to second, I don't think.
Yeah, so that would, so that would be meeting on,
November 5th.
November 5th. Yes. So, yeah, I'm fine with that. I'll, table that until the 5th of November.
Thank you.
All right, resolution 25R39, Tony?
A resolution authorizing New Franklin to enter into an agreement with OHM Advisors for the design of the Sisler Park Trail Project and declaring an emergency.
This was brought forth in front of the Community Development Committee, and we would like to request time.
Time is requested and time is granted. That closes our consent agenda. Next up is our favorite part of the meeting, the mayor's report.
All right. We'll start with the fun stuff. Let's see, we had a music night, and we had a group called On the Lash. We tried to get some variety. And I don't know if anybody was here, but they were, it was four musicians, singers, Irish music. They were fantastic. And we had a wonderful, the weather was beautiful. We had about 100 people out there on the lawn and really enjoying it. And then coming up this Tuesday, really you should circle this one, DJ's Rock and Roll Band. They've got a poster out there that kind of shows who they are. 7-piece orchestra. I mean, they're going to get a 7-piece horn section. Singers, they're doing some of the old Motown stuff and the old Jerry Lewis and everything. So that's this coming Tuesday out at the Tudor House. And that'll be the last of the music nights. We hope you can join us at that. Let me see. This is our first meeting since the barbecue, isn't it? Yeah, the barbecue was a wonderful success. It was it was well supported, and I think everybody there had a really good time. I don't have the final numbers on it, but we did really well, and the community did really well supporting what we do out there at the Tudor House. As I indicated, that's our big fundraiser, and with sponsorships and with grants, we're able to. We pretty much double what the expense of those events are out there. So through those events, we basically pay for the Tudor House, which at one time was a real liability for us. So that's great fun. All right, let's see. I sent out to everybody. The Department of Commerce notified us that all Class C and D retail permits for alcohol, so liquor permits, they have to be renewed each year by October 1st, 2025. I don't know if that's a new law or not. I don't recall us doing this way in the past, but in any event, if the city wanted to object to any of the renewals, we have to file that objection. It would have to be filed no later than September 2nd. And it's not so much as just say we object, you actually have to give some specific reasons as to, it has to include a statement as to what kind of problems they've had and why we feel that they should not be renewed. So we have actually 25 different businesses that have liquor permits here in New Franklin. We've talked with our police department. They have not had problems. They don't have any objections to any of those renewals. We circulated that to council a while back for you to take a look. From the administration standpoint, we don't have any objection. So I would ask for a motion to decline the opportunity to object to the renewals.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. The first and second thing.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
All right, and I forgot to mention the On the Lash, this Irish group. On the Lash. I said, what is On the Lash? What does that have to do with anything? Apparently, in Great Britain, if you want to go out with all your friends and have some fun and listen to some music and drink a few beers, you're on the lash. Okay? So now you know. So don't go on the lash. At least not tonight. At least until we're done. All right. Here we go. We had an issue arise with solicitation. A gentleman apparently wanted to was interested in soliciting signatures on a petition for a particular ballot issue. It really doesn't matter what the ballot issue is, and wanted to be involved at our farmers market for that purpose. And I don't, here's the situation. First of all, the city has, as part of our policy manual, a non-solicitation provision in there on city property. But there are certain things, political things, et cetera, First Amendment rights make sense. What the city cannot do, and this is my opinion, and I think I'm right, is endorse that by saying, okay, we're going to give you a specific spot to do that. So let me make it clear an example for the farmer's market. If somebody wants to come to the farmer's market and with a petition and talk to a person who's standing around and say, would you sign my petition, we have no problem with that. What the city cannot do is set up a table that makes it appear that the city perhaps is supporting or endorsing that particular petition, no matter what it's for. And so I'm sorry if there was any confusion in that for the individual who wanted to sign the petitions. Whoever it is, he's certainly welcome to come back tomorrow night and wander around and get signatures. We just can't, we can't support that by giving a specific table and make it appear that this is a city initiative. So, all right, there's that. We are happy to announce that we received, I'd like to say almost $500,000. It's $398,000 of funding from the Ohio Public Works Commission. And this is for our Melody Village culverts. And that's been a long-standing problem. Many people up there on council have been over there and toured the stormwater issues we have. There were 4 culverts that needed to be replaced. The one on Overture Way has been done. I think we got about 90% of the cost of that from state funds. So the remaining 3 culverts out there in Melody Village now need to be done. And the grant we got from OPWC is for half of that cost. So again, $400,000 coming into the city we think it will make a big difference up there in Melody Village, and we'll continue to see what more we can do to address stormwater issues up there. All right. The State Route 619, the grant that we got for the planning grant for that, is we had a wrap-up meeting with the steering committee of the local residents. We're, I would say, universally pleased with the product, what they presented to try to beautify and make that a more attractive stretch. From the city's perspective, we think it'll be helpful in terms of potential development, things like curbs and sidewalks and multi-purpose trail, and I think it's going to be a lot safer, et cetera. We had the survey, the community survey, had over about 275 responses, most of them from people who live right there. So OHM will come in here and make a presentation to council. They'd like to come on Wednesday, October 1st for that. And they'll present those findings. And then they'll also talk about then how do we put these things into play? How do we find funding? If we think it's a good idea to do these things, how do we find the funding for that? So that'll be Wednesday, October 1st, 6 p.m. Let me see. I got the NOPEC sent out the rates for Enbridge Gas Ohio Communities, their gas rates. We'll post these online. The standard program from September 2025 is currently $5.29 per MCF. I guess you can lock in for 12 months at $5.50. You can lock in for 24 months at $5.75 if you think it's going to go up. It's almost like playing the market, I guess, anymore. But we'll post that information and let people make their decisions relative to that. Let's see. All right, short-term rentals. We have our law director has taken a look at it and has worked to draft a sample resolution ordinance actually. We're taking a final look at that, and the anticipation. The question is, the first question is, does it have to go through planning and zoning, or can it be a standalone ordinance? We're trying to get a final answer on that. I think we're going to be able to proceed as a standalone ordinance. That would be a quicker process, number one. But that's not, just a bit quicker doesn't make it the right way. Our Planning and Zoning Commission is inundated with a lot right now. And to put this on there, but just to keep it from them is not a good answer by itself either. But I have, just this afternoon, I haven't gotten back to the law director on this, but I did talk with our zoning administrator and our consultant, Fred Guerra, and he's of the opinion that we could proceed as a standalone ordinance on this. Obviously, we've got to clear that. We have to make sure of that with the law director, because what we don't want to do is adopt an ordinance. We anticipate there's a possibility of litigation will follow if we put restraints, and if the owners of these short-term rentals are not happy with the restraints and they want to litigate. We want that litigation to be focused on the four corners of the ordinance. We don't want to lose the argument because we didn't properly implement it. So we do have to be sure about that part of it. I'm reasonably optimistic, and I'm reasonably confident that we can proceed as a standalone ordinance. I'm going to have a further conversation with the law director on that. I'll try to get an answer to council before this week is out. And then what would come next is there may be some final tweaking, and I'm open to comment relative to the draft. And then that will be part of an ordinance that will be able to get out to the public for their purview and the opportunity for comment, etc. We had said last time out that we wanted to have that by the beginning of September, and according to this timeline, we will. And then that would be something that council could act on in October at the latest. So that's what's going on with that one. And I don't mean to be cagey with it. I think we've got to make sure we got something before we send it out there. I think that that the draft is going to address a lot of the concerns that have been expressed. So you'll have that very soon. And the very last thing I got is the Summit County Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board, the ADM Board, they're on the ballot again in November also. And they're looking for a renewal of 2.95 mils and an increase of a half a mil to a total of 3.45 mils. And this would amount to $75 for each $100,000 value of a house on an annual basis. So they have sent that out. They're asking all of the municipalities to consider endorsing it. The council needs to give that some thought. These are hard times. The services that a board like this offers impacts everybody. Probably the majority of people who live out here. I will say the majority of people are never in need of the services of the ADM board. All right, but it may be close, a 50-50. And until you need them, you don't realize how critical it is. There's also the angle that these types of issues going untreated create a risk of harm for everybody, no matter where you are. So they do fabulous work. I told them I certainly support it personally, but whether or not we want to speak as a city and endorse it, we'll have to give some thought to that. I'll wait to hear from you folks on that. That's all I have.
Before you enter the mayor's report, Mr. Mayor, can you update us on where the consultants are on Route 93?
You're talking about for the economic, for the development?
Yeah, we're paying $4,000 a month, what are they doing for us?
Yeah. Well, and they were here today. First of all, they're continuing their canvas on, well, we got to work on a variety of projects, quite frankly, because we're also talking about expanding the water line. There's to take it from Grace Church up to Nemasilla, take it down Nemasilla so it can service the schools, and then take it down Renninger, and then back around up to Center, so you have a loop, and it also puts it close to the BP remediation area. So we've had them doing some canvassing on that, and and we're also, part of that is to see if we can, if they would be willing, if our public water systems would be willing to take the water if it comes. So they gave us a report on that. It's been an overwhelming majority of those public water systems have indicated they would take the water. All of them indicate at the same time that they would really, what they really want is sewer, so we're going to continue to work on that. On 93, we've had them working with the Bell stores in terms of some tweaking as far as what's going to happen with that development. They also then are continuing canvassing, I'll call it, with the property owners along 93 to see what their wishes are. I won't go into details because some of that's confidential information. I will tell you that we've had some good responses. And then at the same time, then they're also in the process of reaching out to developers to see what interest there may be with developers. And we obviously have to go slow with that. We're not going to get in a situation where we tell people what to do with their land, but we do want to make developers aware of the timeline on the sewer. So they're working on that part of it as well. We talked today also about State Route 619, and we expect we're going to have the same type of, we're laying the groundwork for that type of canvassing as well over there to see what property owners want to do, because we're really going to need partnerships with developers over there to make that happen. This here we were able to do without developers and without cost to the city. So working on every angle that we have relative to development.
Is that it for the report?
Mm-hmm.
Next up will be finance report. Do you have anything, Mayor, or Susan out here?
No, I do not. She had a family situation and was unable to attend, but she didn't give me anything to report.
All right, next up is the old business.
I want to mention the farmer's market. And Mayor, thank you for mentioning that a couple of times in your report. That was very nice. The farmer's market, we've had so many wonderful people here. I think some of us even fought over camels last week. It was huge. It was delicious. I did one. But we've had so many people show up and so many people. It's always a pleasure to me because I get to see so many people I haven't seen in a while. I know that's bad, but I enjoy it for that reason. And Terry was there. She'll tell you we've had a lot of good response, I think. Don't you, Terry? And we really enjoy it. And it's right here at the City Hall on Thursdays from 3 until 7. We'll be through September, I believe.
Any other old business?
I do. Mayor, you mentioned in your report about grants we received for Melody Village, and the culverts is about $400,000 or $500,000. Over the past many years, we've received a lot of grants. We had the gentleman here talk about finances and specifically with the fire department, but all departments have been active in trying to find grants for their department, for the city, fire trucks, police equipment, service equipment, development, etc. And we talk about running tight budgets. A lot of that wouldn't happen without the grants. And the grants don't just, we don't get a letter in the mail saying, hey, you received a grant. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into applying for those grants, researching them to find grants, applying for the grants, giving the right information at the right time, because a lot of these grants are on a scoring system. So we have to make sure that we're providing all the right information to help us move up the ladder on those grants. And I just think it's been an excellent job. Mayor Adams and I appreciate the hard work that you've done to make these grants possible for us. But it's not just you. It's people in the fire department, people in the police department that are going. We even have a citizen, Laura Jo Hawk, who has no affiliation with this city as employment-wise,
but she's worked the grants for us and come up with grants and applied for grants for the city. So it takes a lot of people to make these happen. They don't just happen. A lot of time and effort gets put into it, and it really benefits the city. So I think a lot of times we hear, oh, we got a grant for this, we got a grant for that, and some people may take it for granted, but really shouldn't, because it's really amazing that we're able to get this money.
Right, Jim.
Thanks for highlighting that, Jim. Any other old business? Seeing none, do we have any new business?
I'll mention the farmer's market again, because we want you all to come. It's tomorrow evening from 3 to 7, every Thursday evening. I'll expect to see every one of you there.
Where is that?
It's right here at the, in the
Right
front here, right out there. And I'm gonna look for you tomorrow night.
Right out there.
Yes.
Okay, popcorn.
The popcorn's the favorite. Which Barry really helps me. I'm going to say he comes up a lot of times, and he's even loaned me a tent. He took pity on me sitting out here in the sun, and he loaned me a tent, which I love. That was really nice. Thank you.
I've got a few items here I wanted to bring up. One is on August 30th. We got 2 events going on. One is the Touch a Truck. This will be our third year doing it. It's been well attended. Under the public and the community, they really enjoy seeing our equipment and talking to staff and stuff out there. It's been very well received. That is from 9 to noon on August 30th, Saturday. At that same time, I think they start at maybe 8. The scouts are doing their breakfast today. So it's a great opportunity to come out, get a great breakfast, and then walk over and see a bunch of equipment, talk to the firefighters, police, everything. I know we've got ODNR coming out, SWAT will be here, police, fire, there's a few other state troopers I think are coming out. But we get a handful of people coming out. It's a nice event. So I just want to make sure that we know about that. Another item I wanted to bring up is, and this actually came about after talking with some of our service folks here, but currently it sounds like we've got some places where some underground utilities are being replaced. I happen to work in a community where we have an ordinance where if a entity is replacing their underground facilities, they have to remove them, any of the abandoned stuff. And where that becomes an issue is if these things are failing, you've got the abandoned pipes in the ground, they either create sinkholes, or when they do call it from oops marking, they won't mark those, they only mark the active lines. With us expanding water and sewer out here and then the existing gas, it may not be a problem today, but this is a problem for the future. I was wondering if there'd be an interest to propose this type of an ordinance that requires
I think so.
the utility companies, underground utility companies, to remove their infrastructure if it fails
Yes.
or they abandon it.
I think that's great.
Essentially what it does, it speaks to they're required to remove this stuff. And if they don't, it will be removed at their expense.
Mm-hmm. And most of us wouldn't think about that, Kevin. Thank you for bringing it up.
Oh, and actually, it was brought to my attention, but we've got I've got the template for it.
That would be
I
great.
can forward that over to the mayor if you want to.
I already sent it to planning and zoning, the zoning administrator this morning.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then we'll follow up with the law director as well and see how quick we can. That's probably going to be also a standalone ordinance.
That's really good, though.
Rather than
That's
try to fit it into the revision, and I don't know, we're not going to be approving the revision probably until later in the year. So I think we're going to present that as a standalone and then eventually incorporate it. So appreciate the heads up from our service director, and then follow up with Mr. Powell. And,
That is
we're going to
really
move on that one. I hope to have that in front of you next time we come back.
Thanks. Last item I have is we have a no-knock registry out here, and we also, for people soliciting, they've got to register with the city, correct?
Absolutely.
So we've got a company out here, I don't know that I really want to mention their name, I actually stopped and talked to them, had an interesting discussion with them, but they're driving around on segways and hoverboards and stuff, pest control. And these people, they are just out everywhere. And they are, they're bothering people. But I go up to the guy, he was coming down the road. He had no idea that I had any knowledge of, we're supposed to have these, basically register as a solicitor. I started talking to him, and he had a badge from his company. Well, yeah, here's what I have. Well, that means nothing to us. So I explained to this guy that you gotta go to the city, register with them as a solicitor, and there's a new MAC registry, so you're not bothering these people who have signed up for it. It was a day later, I see the guy in another neighborhood. So I just, should I reach out to Barry on this?
Yeah, that's the first I've heard. No, we'll get the police on this.
It's been going on. I mean, I saw some heads nodding out there. This is not a,
Yeah, no, nobody's brought that to our attention.
And they're aggressive too.
they are.
They're very aggressive.
So, yeah, if we could we reach out to the company and?
Well, of course, no, absolutely. When it hits, when it hits our radar, that's what we do.
But the thing
This
is,
is the first I'm hearing.
they don't have any identification that says I work for ABC scammers.
Yeah.
They just come hauling up and just stop them, knock on the door and try and sell you the Brooklyn Bridge.
And they are hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
Well, then, okay, we'll get aggressive with it. You got the company name?
I do.
Okay, we'll share it with you. Tell the world, what is it?
Mira Home.
What is it?
Mira, M-I-R-A Home.
One more time.
M-I-R-A, Mira Home.
They
Two words like home? H-O-M-E?
H-O-M-E.
Okay, all right, we'll find out what's up with them. No, I've had the same, I had, maybe 2 weeks ago, I had a knock on my door and the guy wanted to sell me a roof. They were always surprised when I handed my card. Because this happened a few times. I said, well, first of all, you're not supposed to be here, that's what happens on the mayor. And I'm on the do not knock list. So all of those things. By the way, if you're not on the do not knock list, check our website. And then if somebody knocks, we want to know about that. All right? So please let us know these things when they're coming, because it's even easier if we know they're in a neighborhood and we get a call right away, we can get a cruiser out there.
Well, sometimes just a little iron persuasion runs them off.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm with you. So anyway,
Thank you. Yeah, I'll reach out to Barry as well, bring that
okay.
information.
Yeah, good. Okay.
That's all I have for new business. Anybody else?
Do you feel that was just a scam? Do you think they would?
No, I think
Or
it's
do you think
just,
it's legitimate?
they're just out trying to come up business, but they're very aggressive about how they do it.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, I think the mayor arranged an appointment with Mr. Powell and myself here in council chambers with Amy Hopkins at First Energy. I know that I've experienced at both my residence and my place of employment 12 separate power outages. And, I was ready loaded for bear. But I was very surprised on how prepared Amy was for the meeting. She had a spreadsheet, she had the cause of every single issue, what substation, actions they're taking and have taken and what is going on. So it was a very good meeting, and I learned a lot. And Kevin educated me along with Amy on what they're doing, and I have seen tree removal on 619, getting him off those lines, and they're making some progress. So I thought it was a really good meeting. So thank you for putting it together.
Thank you for mentioning it. Thank you.
Sure.
I had one more thing we forgot to mention was this Sunday, New Franklin Global Church is holding a service and a picnic in honor of our first responders. So they've invited the police and the fire for a picnic. They've invited the community for support. I understand it'll be a relatively brief service, and then just a thank you to our safety forces. So that's this Sunday. Starts at 11 o'clock. It'll be whatever ceremony there's going to be, and then I guess it'll go till 2 o'clock. So anybody who can attend, public, please, we welcome you, and we want to show support for our guys and women. That's all.
Seeing no additional new business, we move on to our second round of public comments, questions, anything raised at the meeting tonight?
Yeah, thanks. Mike Hoffman, 4123 Luther Avenue. I want to thank the mayor and the council for the empathy and action on the short-term rental on behalf of several that are interested in it. I know at the last council meeting I've shared other communities that have prohibited short-term rentals and asked if anybody had reached out to peers, council or mayors, and it appeared that where the law director had, and I volunteered to do that. I got a reply from Mayfield Heights council president, because they prohibited it. They said, "Hi, Mr. Hoffman, we'd be happy to discuss our ordinance with you. We can also put you in touch with our law director. Let us know when. Thank you for reaching out." And another council person had said they've had no issues with it. So I will plan on scheduling a conversation and get feedback, but I know since Mr. Sugarman has been concerned and trying to advise council on concern about litigation, I would think, can't council direct him, strongly encourage him to talk to some of the law directors from these communities that have prohibited it? Maybe that will give him comfort that it might be overreacting to concern about.
I think some of the issue is that Mr. Sugarman is the law director for several other cities, and there have been issues in some of those, from what I understand. So it's not just a standalone opinion. Herb has some experience.
Oh, I know, he works for Coventry, represents Coventry Township too, but it would seem like he would want to have a conversation with the law directors, the ones that are prohibited. I would think that there would be more litigious when somebody in a community that outright prohibits it than one that puts restrictions on it. So I would hope that he would want to have the conversation, but I will listen to it and what they say, and I'll share feedback with council. Lastly, I know there's a lot of us at the last council meeting, and I found it interesting that there was also present an owner of a New Franklin Airbnb here that doesn't live in New Franklin, that was silent, and I thought it would have been a great opportunity for him to advocate on how short-term rentals enhance and improve the city. I know he wouldn't have the courage to do that, but nor go door to door advocating on how that will help the communities to put more short-term rentals around there. So I just wanted to make that statement. I also want to comment about no solicitation. We are allowed to go and educate citizens about topics that doesn't fall into the no solicitation if we're not selling anything, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I have been knocking on doors and reading flyers that say no solicitation.
No.
Thank you for listening. Anybody else have any comments?
Any other public comments? Seeing none? There we have a need for an executive session, I believe.
Yeah, I asked for an executive session to discuss employment of public employees.
Do I have a motion to go to executive session?
I'll second.
The first and the second one?
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones? Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
All right, we're going to go to executive session. No decisions will be made. Our next meeting will be September 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. Thank you.